Someone can receive a blow to the head, render them unconscious, so they're disabled and can be then manhandled off the boat, weighed down, whatever.
Was this man that we've got in the water fishing 10 miles away, had got swept into the water by a high wave and had found his way down into that particular spot.
What I was required to do was to find out how the body got there.
Two fishermen, hardened by years at sea, prepared for what they thought would be an ordinary day. With little success in their first haul, they decided to venture farther, 6 miles beyond their usual waters, to a place locals quietly referred to as the Roughs. Their nets dropped into the dark waters, weighted heavy, hoping to bring up something worthwhile. What they pulled up, however, was something no fisherman should ever have to see. A man's body, tangled in with fish and seaweed, dropped heavily onto the deck, bloated, pale, lifeless, and yet remarkably preserved. At first, investigators believed they were looking at a tragic boating accident, but what began as a seemingly routine case soon spiraled into an international manhunt involving stolen identities, financial fraud, and a murder so meticulously planned, it nearly succeeded. This is the story of Ronald Platt, and the man who tried to erase him from existence, a man who called himself David Davis, but who was, in reality, Albert Walker, one of Interpol's most wanted fugitives. When the trawler crew radioed the Coast Guard, they assumed someone had drowned, perhaps a yachtsman, or a worker who'd slipped off a cargo ship. Devon and Cornwall police responded swiftly. The man had no identification, no wallet, no phone, just a Rolex watch on his wrist, still ticking. The time read just after 11. The date on the face? July 22nd. Detective Inspector Mike Barkley was among the first officers on the scene. What struck him wasn't just the condition of the body, but what wasn't there. The pockets had been turned out, as if someone had rifled through them. Could this really have been an accident? The post-mortem began raising more questions than answers. There was a gash on the back of the man's head, deep but not conclusive. He could have been struck accidentally during the trawling, some argued, but then there was the tattoo on the back of his right hand, a blurry image, worn by time and sea. Some saw a cluster of stars, others, a maple leaf, a Canadian maple leaf. Investigators couldn't identify him, not yet, but they had one clue: the Rolex. One officer, by chance, mentioned the watch in a conversation with a colleague from another unit. Rolex? Check the serial number. And so they did. That serial led them to a small jeweler's shop in Yorkshire. The Rolex had been serviced there twice. It belonged, they said, to a man named Ronald Joseph Platt. At last, they had a name: Ronald Platt. The question now wasn't just who he was, but why he was lying dead at the bottom of the English Channel. Platt had once rented a room here. When police asked the landlord for a reference, he handed them the name of someone Platt had listed as a character witness, a man named David Davis. He seemed like a helpful friend, calm, well-dressed, clean-shaven. He didn't blink when the officers told him Ronald was dead. He didn't ask many questions, and he was full of stories. He told them Ron had moved to France to start a business, that he'd even loaned him the money. He even had a photo of Ron send it to police days later. Everything seemed to check out. Detective Sergeant Peter Redman was about to knock on the wrong door, and that mistake would unravel a truth darker than anyone imagined. Detective Ian Clenahan thought he was chasing a simple drowning, maybe a tragic accident, a drunk tourist lost to the tide. But now, it's starting to feel like he's fallen headfirst into someone else's lie. Because the dead man in the freezer, Ronald Joseph Platt, is apparently alive and well, living in Essex, with a wife, children, a yacht. Except, the man living that life isn't Ronald Platt at all. Sergeant Peter Redman leans back in his chair, still stunned from the visit to Little London Farm. The man living there introduced himself as Ronald Platt. The neighbors confirmed it. Utility bills, doctor appointments, baby records. But Redman knows that body in Devon really is Platt. Dental records don't lie. So who the hell is the man playing house under Ronald's name? The deeper police dig, the stranger it gets. The imposter, David Davis, is polite, charming, well-spoken. He blends in, says all the right things, but he's also a ghost. No real paper trail, no real past, except one very real, very dead body that proves he's been living under a stolen identity. And that's just the start. Police get a search warrant. They raid the farmhouse Davis shared with his wife and 2 daughters. What they find in the little girl's diaper bag leaves them speechless. Gold bars, dozens of them, cash, foreign bank account numbers, multiple IDs. What kind of man hides thousands of pounds in gold bullion inside his child's backpack? And more importantly, what kind of man passes off his daughter as his wife? Noelle Davis, the young woman living with Davis, says she's 21, claims to be Canadian, his wife, mother of his children. But when pressed, her story starts to unravel. Her accent fades, her eyes drop. She's not his wife, she's his daughter. Police don't even know what to ask first. Is this incest? Human trafficking? Is she complicit? Or another one of his victims? They check the children's birth certificates. Both are registered as Platts, which means, legally, Ronald Platt, the dead man, is their father. And if that's not insane enough, Davis is still carrying IDs for both himself and Platt in his pockets at the time of arrest. He was living as 2 men at once. Albert Johnson Walker, that's the real name. It would take months for police to finally uncover it, but when they do, a chilling truth emerges. David Davis, Ronald Platt, none of it was real. Walker was a Canadian fugitive wanted for fraud, embezzlement, and international theft. He'd stolen millions back home and fled the country under a fake identity. How does a man do that? Easy. He brings his daughter, gives her a fake name, convinces everyone she's his wife, and then he disappears into English countryside society. July 20th, 1996. Walker and Platt are seen at a pub together in Devon. Locals confirm it. Platt was drinking, talking, laughing. Days later, his body is pulled from the sea. The autopsy shows no major trauma. No signs of a struggle, only a faint head injury and water in the lungs. It means one thing. Ronald Platt was alive when he went into the ocean. He didn't fall. Someone put him there, stunned him, then tossed him overboard. And the only man known to be with him that day was David Davis. Walker uses Platt's name to escape Canadian justice. He encourages Platt to move back to Canada, even buys him plane tickets to get him out of the way. But Platt comes back unexpectedly. Walker panics. He invites Platt to Devon, takes him out on the yacht, and Ronald Platt never comes back. The GPS on board the boat tells the full story. It places Walker's yacht in the exact location where Platt's body was found. It's not just circumstantial anymore. It's murder. On October 31st, 1996, Albert Walker is formally charged with the murder of Ronald Platt. In his possession are 2 sets of ID, evidence of incest. He stays silent. His only request? I want to see my solicitor. In court, prosecutors unveil a story straight from a crime novel. A man fakes identities like Second Skin, defrauds millions, flees the country, hides as another man, fathers children with his own daughter, and kills the only person who could expose him. At the trial in 1998, the jury listens in stunned silence. Forensic evidence, GPS tracking, bank fraud records, all point to one conclusion. Albert Johnson Walker is guilty. He is sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 15 years. His daughter and her 2 children are placed under care. Her role in the crimes remains murky. She disappears from public life soon after the trial. Canada would later charge Walker with multiple counts of fraud, dating back years. Before he was a killer, Walker reinvented himself so many times, it's impossible to say when the lies began. In 2005, Canada filed extradition requests, not just to try him for fraud, but to bring him home to the victims he betrayed. He was returned under special arrangements and has since served additional time in Canadian custody for multiple counts of fraud and theft. He remains incarcerated to this day, but the damage he left behind, shattered families, lost millions, 2 children born of his own daughter, can never be undone. Albert Walker didn't just steal money. He stole trust. He stole identities. He stole lives. Ronald Platt died alone, tossed into the sea by someone he called a friend. And the man who did it, he might still believe he's the smartest man in the room, but even the best lies float to the surface